Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Breakfast with Ben's Steelers Draft Preview, Matt Williamson on defensive backs. As the Pittsburgh Steelers prepare for the NFL Draft, April 25th to 27th, we are doing the same here at Breakfast with Ben's. That means it's time for our annual draft preview series with pro and college scout Matt Williamson. I've worked with Williamson for many years on Fox Sports Radio 970 AM and the WDV Steelers pregame show. He is also on Steelers Nation Radio. Each day we post at Breakfast with Ben's. Before round 1, we will drop a new podcast looking at a different position group of draft-eligible players. We begin our series Thursday morning by looking at the defensive backs. When it comes to evaluating this year's NFL draft pool and how the Steelers should attack it, our draft expert Matt Williamson sees a lot of value in the offensive line. That's specifically true in some areas of need for the Steelers. This is a rare offensive tackle draft. I think it's an exceptional center draft, Williamson said in Thursday's Breakfast with Ben's podcast. As usual, but more so, it's a great, deep, wide receiver draft. And the more defensive tackle work I did, the more I liked it. But the Steelers definitely have needs at defensive back as well. Granted, the team traded for ex-Carolina Panthers cornerback Dante Jackson and signed former Ravens, Lions, and Dolphins safety Deshaun Elliott. If healthy, Corey Trice and Darius Rush could be involved in 2024 as well. That said, the franchise has let Levi Wallace, Patrick Peterson, Shandon Sullivan, Keanu Neal, Elijah Riley, and Eric Rowe test free agency. James Pierre has already signed with the Washington Commanders. So numbers are needed in the Steelers secondary, even if some of those players are eventually re-signed. At corner it's good, Williamson said of the draft class. It's deep. They're slot corners, which is the biggest need right now at the corner position for the Steelers. There aren't any superstars, Jalen Ramseys, Sauce Gardners, that are guaranteed early picks. But, as usual, there will be 5 corners or so in the first round. I like that group, and the Steelers could be fishing in those waters. I asked Williamson if there were any corners that would sway his opinion about leaning toward taking one of the many good tackles at pick number 20. He pointed to 4 possibilities: Terrion Arnold, Alabama; Quinyon Mitchell, Toledo; Nate Wiggins, Clemson; and Cooper DeJean, Iowa. Arnold, Mitchell, Wiggins, and DeJean would definitely be in my top 20 players. So, if things don't go great, I would say they're worth the 20th pick. That adds up, Williamson said. Wiggins is leaner, super fast, but he's only an outside guy. Mitchell is almost exclusively an outside guy, but he might be the best of the bunch and just too good to pass up. Arnold and DeJean, though, would fit more in terms of being a slot now, and maybe better than Jackson before you know it as an outside guy in 2 corner sets. Of that group, Williamson says that DeJean might be the most intriguing prospect for the Steelers based on their specific needs, namely, a big hole at slot corner. He is a little straight-line-ish. Many think he's a safety. I think he's a slot, a star back, which is kind of an in-the-box type of guy. Highly capable of being an outside corner and might be a superstar safety, Williamson said. I think if you would get DeJean in the first round, you might just be done with your defensive backfield. And that's a nice little approach. 1 pick could fill in all those gaps. I think that's really attractive. Steelers predicted to move up in NFL draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a number of different massive needs that they will try to address next weekend at the 2024 NFL Draft, and they could go in a number of different directions to fill those gaps in the roster before the start of training camp later this summer. Mark Kaboly of The Athletic dove into potential trade scenarios for the Steelers and wrote this week that, of all the draft day trade scenarios that could be at their disposal, trading up to grab a right tackle of the future is among the most likely for Pittsburgh. The offensive line appears to be the spot where need meets availability at the 20th spot in the draft, which makes it a real possibility they can move up to snag one they want, Kabylie wrote. Out of all the scenarios, moving up in the first round to draft a right tackle has to be at the top. Kabylie doesn't envision the Steelers making dramatic moves up the draft order to get their tackle of the future, but after looking at how they moved up 3 spots to take standout rookie Broderick Jones in exchange for a 5th-round selection, and believes they could do that again this time around. The Steelers could find themselves in a similar situation that might result in the same plan, Kabylie said. The Steelers haven't been shy about their desire to land one of the top offensive tackles in a draft that's rich with talented players at that position. Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton, Troy Fautanu, and Talise Fuaga all took visits to Pittsburgh, and Kabylie floated that even a guy like Alabama's J.C. Latham could be within range for the Steelers if he falls far enough to get in range of a modest trade-up. The Steelers have a void along their offensive line and, if Kabylie is correct, they will be aggressive trying to fill that void this spring. First call, 49ers reportedly dismiss Steelers' Brandon Aiyuk trade call, Marc-Andre Fleury discusses plan to play next year. Thursday's first call gives us San Francisco's reaction to a Steelers trade inquiry for Brandon Aiyuk. We also have an interesting note about a Steelers draft option. Pirates prospect Paul Skeens gets ready to pitch again in Indianapolis. And Marc-Andre Fleury explains his decision to come back for one more year. The Steelers inquired about trading for wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk and were shut down by the San Francisco 49ers. That was the word from Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio on 93.7 The Fan on Wednesday. Florio's account would appear to be in line with what Niners general manager John Lynch told Mike Tomlin at a recent interaction during Michigan's Pro Day. But the Steelers apparently did their diligence in at least following up with a potential trade offer. The report also matches what Ian Rappaport advanced Tuesday, which is that the teams have been calling about Aiyuk's availability, but the 49ers haven't been engaging in conversations. Aiyuk wants a new contract instead of the team's $14.1 million 5th-year option. He totaled 75 receptions, 1,342 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 2023. At last word, Pirates' first-round draft choice Paul Skeens is supposed to be pitching Thursday night against the St. Paul Saints. The Indianapolis Indians are still promoting his appearance there, even though there was some buzz that Skeens might get called up because the Pirates optioned left-handed pitcher Jose Hernandez to AAA Indy. Last week, the LSU product racked up a season-high 8 strikeouts in 3 1/3 scoreless innings. 15 of his pitches hit 100 miles per hour or faster. He still has a 0.00 ERA after 3 games and 9.5 innings. Skeens is no longer the biggest name prospect in Indianapolis, though. That's probably Caitlin Clark now. The WNBA number 1 selection was just picked by the Indiana Fever. Despite his LSU allegiances, Skeens welcomed the Iowa star to town on behalf of the Indians. As for the Pirates, they have an off day following 3 straight losses in New York against the Mets. They will try to rediscover a winning touch against the Boston Red Sox on Friday at PNC Park. And you, fan, what do you think of the situation of Brandon Aiyuk? Leave your opinion in the comments.